Hello, and welcome to the Fundamentals of Music. My name is Jefferson Gentry, and I will be guiding you through our first lecture on how to read music. We are going to start by understanding sheet music. This is a handwritten or printed form of musical communication. The most common form of it that you would encounter today is in print or digital form. Sheet music can vary greatly in its complexities and its simplicities. On the left of this slide, we have Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
This is a fairly simple example of sheet music. In the middle, we have the more complex Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven.
And on the right, we have Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. This is an example of multiple instruments all being instructed on one piece of sheet music.
To better understand how musicians go about reading sheet music, we're going to deconstruct Happy Birthday into its smaller components, and then rebuild it with a better understanding of its parts. The first concept we are going to tackle is the staff, sometimes referred to as a stave. This is a graph consisting of 5 lines and 4 spaces that plot out what pitches to play and when to play them. Another way of looking at this is having 2 axes, a y-axis and an x-axis. The x-axis controls when a note should occur in time, and the y-axis determines what pitch you would hear. Our first concern is going to be to understand the y-axis, or the up and down dimension of the graph. A pitch is the frequency at which a given sound vibrates. This is what you audibly hear when a piano key is pressed or a string on a guitar is plucked. A notehead is the small oval shape drawn on the staff. This represents a particular pitch. An important thing to note is that collectively the notehead and the pitch that it represents is referred to as a note. And you may see the terms pitch and note used interchangeably, and that's okay. The higher a notehead is placed on the staff, the higher the pitch will be. Here we have 2 examples. In example A, the first notehead represents a higher pitch than the second notehead.
Here is example A one more time.
In example B, the first notehead is a lower pitch than the second notehead.
Here is example B one more time.
The next thing we will look at are clefs. Clefs are used to identify the given set of pitches used on a staff. A staff by itself can indicate what pitch is relatively higher or lower, but you will need a clef to know the specific pitches being implemented. The names of the pitches come from the alphabet, using the letters A through G. There are many kinds of clefs, and each one has its own functions and purposes, but we are only going to be looking at these 2 today. The first clef is the treble clef. Another name for this is a G clef. This has a couple reasons. The design of the clef is that of a fancy sort of cursive letter G. Pictured here is the evolution of the clef from the 9th century up to modern day. The swirl of the clef indicates where on the staff the pitch labeled G can be found. This is another reason why we call it the G clef. In the red box here, I have indicated the swirl that we were talking about. That second line on the staff is the pitch G. Now that you know where one of the pitches are, you can use the alphabet to construct the rest of the pitches on the staff. As you go up the staff, you follow the alphabet in its normal order. As you go lower on the staff, you follow the alphabet backwards. Here in the example, we can see starting on the first line of the staff is E, and then you follow the alphabet up. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F is on the top or fifth line of the staff. An important thing to note is that we alternate between line, and space, with the letters of the alphabet following suit. And notice that once we get to G, we restart the alphabet on A. So starting on the first line, it goes E, F, G, and then on the second space, we go back to A. Knowing the etymology of the clef can help you understand why we use it, and it can help you construct all of the pitches on the staff on your own. However, a lot of people like to memorize it over constructing it. A popular way of doing this is by separating the line pitches from the space pitches, or the line notes from the space notes. Again, pitches and notes are sometimes used interchangeably. For the space pitches, you can see that starting in the first space and reading it upwards, it spells the word face, F-A-C-E. For the line notes, you will need to create an acronym. This can be anything to help you remember the names of the pitches in the correct order.
One that many people use is every good boat does fine.
The one that I learned growing up was even Garfield buys dog food. This gives you the letters E, G, B, D, F, which covers all of the lines on the staff.
Take some time now to try to come up with your own acronym before we move on to the next clef.
The next clef is the bass clef, and we can use our understanding of how the treble clef works to also understand how this clef works. Another name for the bass clef is the F clef. This is for similar reasons. The design of the bass clef is that of a fancy sort of cursive letter F, and pictured here is the evolution of the bass clef, or F clef, to the modern day version. The two dots on the clef outline where on the staff the pitch labeled F can be found. Or if you would prefer, you can look at where the swirl starts on the bass clef, which also starts on the pitch F, which is the fourth line of the staff. Now that we know where one of the pitches are on this staff, we can construct the rest of it similarly to how we did with the treble clef. Once we know that the fourth line of the bass clef is the pitch F, as you go up the staff, proceed along the alphabet in the normal fashion, and as you go lower on the clef, go backwards down the alphabet. Pictured here is an example with all of the pitches covering all of the spaces and lines on the bass clef staff. Starting on the first line at the bottom of the staff, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A on the fifth or top line of the staff. Again, if you would choose to memorize this over being able to construct it, you can separate them from the line pitches to the space pitches. For the space pitches, you will not find a singular word being spelled out. Instead, the first three letters form the word ace, and the fourth pitch is G. I prefer to think of this as ace G. The line pitches will again require an acronym that you can create on your own or use a pre-existing one. It is helpful to use an acronym that relates to the first acronym you used on the treble clef. Two examples of this would be
Good boats do fine again,
and Garfield buys dog food again.
Take some time now to try to come up with your own acronym for the line pitches of the bass clef. In the next slide, we will be applying what we have talked about thus far.
Now that we have an understanding of the treble and the bass clef and how to identify the pitches on the staff, let's revisit Happy Birthday and see if we can label some of the pitches that each notehead represents. The first step to doing this is to identify which clef the music uses. As we can see here, we have the fancified letter G, or the treble clef, or G clef, and that tells us what pitches we are dealing with on this staff. Now that we've identified the clef, we can go to our first notehead and see that it is on the second line of the staff, which tells us that this is the pitch G. The following notehead is on the same line, so that is also G. The third notehead is on the second space, and so following the alphabet, we have to restart after the pitch G, so the third notehead on the second space is A. Then it goes back down to the second line, which is G, and then it jumps up to the third space on the staff. Following the alphabet, from G, where the clef circles, would be G, A, B, and C on that third space. The next note goes down one line. Following the alphabet backwards, we can go from C to B, making the sixth notehead the letter B, or the pitch B.
In case you are still a little unclear about which pitch is which, I'm going to sing this line as you normally would sing it in Happy Birthday, and then I will sing it again using the names of the notes on the staff. Happy birthday to you. G, G, A, G, C, B. Take some time now and try singing just the first line of Happy Birthday using the names of the notes instead of the normal words.
And that covers everything for our first lecture. In the next lecture, we will put these concepts together to gain a better understanding of the grand staff, as well as expand our knowledge of the vertical aspect of the staff to include ledger lines.